What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with another Destiny 2 video, and in this one we're going to speak a little bit about some of the weapons that we'll get access to during Act 3 of Echoes. So this time around, on top of the fact that we get 3 legendary weapons introduced into the loot pool, we're also getting the exotic mission and the subsequent exotic weapon. Additionally, there are some artifact mods that are being added as part of this act, which are going to pair up pretty nicely with the exotic, as well as a bunch of other auto rifles and some fairly juicy builds in the game, so we're going to touch on those briefly as well. So as always, I hope you guys enjoy the video today and find it useful. If you do, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Also be sure to get subscribed and I'll keep you posted with more Destiny content. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and now let's get into it. Let's start out a little bit by talking about the legendary weapons that are being introduced into the pool for Act 3. Of course, there are 2 brand new weapons that are part of the kind of themed set for the season, but also a reprised weapon, and of course the reprised weapons have been coming from back in Season of Dawn. So looking at the legendary stuff first, we have Martyr's Retribution. That's the reprised weapon, but it's going to be one of the best weapons I'd say for the act, as it's always been fairly solid, but has had perk updates for the reprised version. So Martyr's Retribution is a solar waveframe grenade launcher. Of course it uses special ammo, and looking at the first trait slot, it can roll heal clip, as well as auto-loading holster, envious assassin, field prep, demolitionist, and then it can get threat detector. Then for slot 2, incandescent can roll, but it can also get kill clip, vorpal weapon, strategist, adrenaline junkie, and desperate measures. So for some of the best perks and pairings here, in the first slot, Envious Assassin is a really good one, as making kills with other weapons will allow the magazine to overflow, and as we've seen with other special weapons in the game, that can result in a far higher magazine than what we typically see. But additionally, heal clip is a pretty popular bonus of course, and given the small magazine size for these weapons, we're going to be able to proc that fairly continuously by reloading, and that will grant cure, but other good first slot perks include things like demolitionist, as not only do we get the grenade energy on kills, but activating grenade abilities will reload the weapon from reserves, and auto-loading holster isn't a bad option either. Then in the second slot, we can get incandescent, which is the first time we've seen this on a wave frame, so that'll be pretty nice, and it's a great bonus to pair with more or less any of the first slot bonuses. Strategist could be okay for certain builds as well, but even better for abilities and damage, we've got things like Adrenaline Junkie, and the weapon gains increased damage and handling from final blows with grenades, or indeed the weapon, and that will combo pretty well with Demolitionist. Plus there is Desperate Measures, which is possibly a better version of Adrenaline Junkie in some ways, as melee and grenade final blows will grant a larger damage bonus for the weapon that can stack. I'll probably be fairly predictable with this and look for Envious Assassin and Incandescent paired together. I love getting those higher magazines, and I just can't help but burn ammo, obviously, but overall there's a really good selection of perks on this weapon, so I'd say it's certainly one to pay attention to. Looking at the Speleologist though, or Speleologist machine gun, I don't know how we say that name correctly, but it's a solar rapid fire frame machine gun, and the first trait slot can get Enlightened Action, Heal Clip, Stats for All, as well as Deconstruct, plus there's Firmly Planted, Slideways, or Envious Assassin once again. Then the second slot is able to get Strategist, Adagio, One for All, Target Lock, Surrounded, Incandescent, and Killing Tally. So in the first slot, perks like Enlightened Action are really good, Stats for All is decent too. I'd even say Firmly Planted is worth a try since this is a rapid fire. And again, Envious Assassin I think is generally a good bonus. Then in the second slot, Target Lock could pair pretty nicely with high magazines from Envious Assassin. One for All is okay for ad clear, but Incandescent of course is a great ad clear bonus, and it isn't bad with Stats for All or Envious Assassin. And then we've got Killing Tally, which will be very strong paired with Envious Assassin especially, as we'll have a 30% damage bonus with that for an extended duration. So personally I'll be looking for Envious Assassin and Incandescent, as well as Envious and Killing Tally to try out. It really depends what you want from the weapon. But finally we have the Chronophage, and this is a Void Trace Rifle, where the first slot can get Elemental Capacitor, as well as Strategist, Shoot to Loot, Pugilist, Auto-Loading Holster, then it can see Feeding Frenzy, or Repulsor Brace, with slot 2 able to get One for All, as well as High Ground, Fragile Focus, Target Lock, Demolitionist, Desperate Measures, and lastly it can get Destabilizing Rounds as well. So for slot 1, Shoot to Loot, some people just love that perk, so it's there if you want it. Pugilist also isn't a bad perk, and Final Blows will give us melee energy, then of course dealing melee damage will improve the weapon's handling. Plus we have Feeding Frenzy, naturally that's good for fast reloads, and Repulsor Brace, which of course could roll on Hollow Words, one of the only other Void Trace rifles, but I'd say this is better because the weapon can get Destabilizing Rounds in the second slot, so if you want Repulsor Brace Destabilizing Rounds, it's going to be a really good weapon. But otherwise, best in slot 2 are things like Target Lock, that's alright, right, it was somewhat popular on the Acacia's Dejection Trace Rifle. Demolitionist is a good perk, and it can pair well with Repulsor Brace for the Void debuff if we want to apply that effect with grenades. And otherwise, I'd say Desperate Measures can pair up nicely with Pugilist in slot 1, but ultimately, Destabilizing Rounds is going to be a really good bonus. We can pair it with Repulsor Brace for the Void Overshields, but it'll also be great with Feeding Frenzy, Pugilist, or Strategist in slot 1. So this weapon's opening up quite a few options, and I'll be looking for Feeding Frenzy or Repulsor Brace paired up with Destabilizing Rounds. So those are the legendary weapons. They'll be dropping from the Echo's activities. When we got new weapons in Act 2, they did need to initially be unlocked by an activity drop, but following that they are added into the loot pool to drop from the engrams. Although it's probably the case that we'll have to work on failsafe upgrades over the first couple of weeks in order to get the weapon focusing option. So if you have saved up some Echo's engrams, that's going to pay dividends, I think. And otherwise, for weapon stuff, we firstly have the artifact mods and the connection to the upcoming exotic weapon from the mission. So new artifact perks for Act 3 include Overload Auto Rifle and authorized mods Charged Up, where the energy cost of Charged Up is significantly discounted. Then there's Sustained Fire, where continuously damaging combatants with an auto rifle grants you damage resistance. Targeting Autoloader, and while you have an auto rifle equipped, defeating combatants reloads your equipped weapon and temporarily increases weapon damage, and then awards bonus progress when dealing final blows while surrounded. Then we have Shock and Awe, and while you have an Arc or Prismatic subclass equipped, Arc final blows while you're amplified summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. And of course that will also work with any Arc weapons or Arc auto rifles that will also benefit from the other artifact mods. So immediately a lot of folks are thinking about builds they can do with Monte Carlo, Tommy's matchbook, indeed the Kvostov, which is also a really solid weapon. But on top of that, as we have heard, we are getting a new exotic for Act 3, and so spoiler alert, this hasn't been announced by Bungie in much detail just yet, but we know that the upcoming exotic weapon is indeed an auto rifle. So it's a Void auto rifle, and it comes with the intrinsic trait Command Frame, which fires extended range heavy caliber projectiles at a reduced rate of fire, but deals increased precision damage when aiming down sights. Then the secondary trait Fanatical Lance, where rapid final blows cause targets to explode in a pool of radiolarian fluid, and hip firing launches multiple projectiles at once in a slower moving spread pattern, then projectiles detonate on impact. On top of that, the weapon will get exotic catalyst refits, so that will include destabilizing rounds, onslaught, and subsistence. So as you can imagine, this is going to pair up really nicely with those artifact mods to generally produce a fairly solid weapon, best we can tell. So I should additionally mention that while we have confirmation that the legendary weapons will drop next week, it isn't guaranteed that the exotic will, although given that the exotic mission is sort of the core new activity for Act 3, I would imagine that it probably will drop in the first week. Just take it with a pinch of salt as it isn't yet confirmed by Bungie. Either way, that does mean we'll see 4 new weapons for Act 3, and so let us know what stands out to you, any roles that you think you're going to go after on these, thoughts on the exotics, artifact mods, and all of that stuff. I'm kind of looking forward to it, especially after a quieter couple of weeks leading up to Act 3. So share your thoughts below, but if you found the video useful, a rating really does help us out. Once again, get subscribed to the channel, and I'll keep you posted with the new content when we get it next week. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.